December 30th, 2016. That was the precise night the most intimidating, impenetrable aura in combat sports history catastrophically collapsed in front of a stunned global audience. When Ronda Rousey walked out of the T-Mobile Arena after a devastating 48-second defeat to Amanda Nunes, she didn't just lose a championship belt, she completely retreated from the realm of unscripted combat. She took her Olympic pedigree, her unprecedented mainstream stardom, and her deeply bruised ego, and sought refuge in the choreographed, heavily shielded universe of professional wrestling. For nearly a full decade, the combat sports ecosystem assumed the book on the Rowdy One was permanently closed. The media wrote her eulogies, the fans endlessly debated her legacy, but they severely underestimated the suffocating, unrelenting competitive fire of a generational athlete. Now, at 39 years old, a mother, and a heavily scrutinized icon, she is stepping out of the shadows and walking directly back into the fire. She is not returning for a scripted sports entertainment spectacle. She is preparing to lock herself inside a globally broadcast Netflix hexagon against the very woman who laid the foundation she stood upon, Gina Carano. The media is hyper-focused on Carano's extended 17-year layoff, completely ignoring the terrifying reality of what is currently happening behind closed doors in Southern California. Welcome inside the deeply secretive, incredibly grueling, and psychologically intense training camp of Ronda Rousey as she orchestrates the most highly anticipated redemption story in modern fighting history.
When I wake up in the morning, I have an alarm set on my phone, and I'll put little notes on my alarm. My note this morning was wake up gorgeous. And then sometimes it's get up champ. And so the first thing I see in the morning is something positive and a motivating compliment. Wake up gorgeous. Get up champ. Usually I'm back in the gym 2 days after a fight. I just don't know what else to do with myself. My mantra? No one has the right to beat me. And it's not something I repeat. It's probably something I'll say to myself once when I walk out of the locker room to go. It's all that needs to be said because it's believed. I'm not trying to convince myself of it. It's something I just know. Fighters are born, champions are made.
Yes, perfect.
Fighters are born, champions are made. When it comes to a fight, I think that the weeks leading up to it is the hardest part. I lay my head down at night and I just keep running through my head different ways that the fight can go. What if they come in and do this? What if this happens? What if this happens? And I'll go over and over and over again. And by the time I get into the octagon, I'm like, I've already played that fight out thousands and thousands of times.
Yes, beautiful.
To successfully mount a comeback of this massive, unprecedented magnitude, the very first phase of Rousey's camp had nothing to do with building stamina or lifting weights. It was a complete, agonizing behavioral detox. For years, Rousey's body has been strictly conditioned for the squared circle of the WWE. In professional wrestling, the objective is to work seamlessly with your opponent, protecting them from true damage, telegraphing your movements, and safely bracing for impact. In a real, unregulated mixed martial arts contest, those exact ingrained habits will get you knocked unconscious in a matter of seconds. Her coaching staff had to meticulously tear down nearly a decade of counterproductive muscle memory. They had to reprogram her central nervous system to stop protecting the opponent and start destroying them again. The first month of this secretive camp was dedicated entirely to restoring her killer instinct. Trainers instituted intense, unpredictable reaction drills. They forced her to break the instinct of bracing for a scripted fall, rewiring her brain to slip, angle, and return fire with devastating intentions. Her trainers brought in elite, highly aggressive kickboxers who were instructed not to hold back. They threw heavy, untelegraphed combinations at her face, forcing her to rediscover the split-second reflexes required to survive in a chaotic, unchoreographed environment. It was a brutal, frustrating transition. There were days of immense friction, moments where the old performance habits flared up, but the relentless repetition eventually forged a massive breakthrough. The scripted performer was slowly stripped away, and the Olympic savage underneath was finally allowed to breathe.
Yeah, no, you predicted the leg sweep. I didn't think you were like, screw that.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Once the fundamental fighting instincts were restored, the camp immediately shifted to solving the most critical vulnerability that ended her UFC run, her striking defense. The entire world watched Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes exploit Rousey's tendency to march straight forward with her chin exposed. Her head movement was non-existent. Her footwork was strictly linear. Gina Carano and her Las Vegas camp are banking their entire multi-million-dollar purse on that exact historical flaw. They expect Rousey to charge forward blindly, directly into a heavy right hand. To counter this glaring weakness, Rousey has entirely overhauled her stand-up architecture. She is not trying to become a world-class kickboxer at 39 years of age. She is engineering a sophisticated, highly evasive delivery system for her grappling. Her new striking coaches have implemented a strict regimen focused entirely on lateral movement, level changes, and slipping off the center line. She is endlessly drilling the mechanics of dropping her elevation beneath a jab, cutting a sharp angle to the blind side, and seamlessly transitioning into the clinch. The goal is to cross the kill zone, the dangerous space where Carano's long Muay Thai strikes are most effective, without absorbing catastrophic cranial trauma. Every single session on the focus mitts is dedicated to defensive responsibility, hands glued to the cheekbones, chin tucked tightly to the chest, eyes constantly scanning the target. By transforming herself into a moving, elusive target, she is systematically neutralizing Carano's greatest weapon before the strike is even thrown. She is learning to use feints and false entries to draw out Carano's counterstrikes, purposely triggering the Pioneer's offense only to duck underneath it. It is a highly cerebral approach to striking, entirely abandoning the reckless brawling style that defined her later championship fights. But the true, uncompromising danger of Ronda Rousey does not live in her boxing gloves. It lives in her grips. Once she successfully crosses that distance and lays her hands on her opponent's fabric, the fight enters a realm where Rousey is historically untouchable. To ensure her legendary judo translates perfectly after a decade away from the cage, her grappling camp has been nothing short of a medieval torture chamber. Rousey has gathered a room full of world-class, heavy-hipped Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts and elite collegiate wrestlers. These massive training partners are specifically chosen for their ability to scramble, frame heavily, and aggressively deny the clinch. Her coaches know that Carano has spent her entire camp learning to fight off the grip and maintain distance. Therefore, Rousey is rigorously drilling secondary and tertiary takedown chains. If Carano successfully blocks the initial head and arm throw, Rousey is already transitioning to an inside trip. If Carano sprawls heavily against the chain link fence, Rousey is chaining the sequence into a devastating Harai Goshi or a seamless Uchimata. It is a relentless, suffocating wave of pressure. The mat sessions are exhausting, grueling affairs designed to build an impenetrable cardiovascular base for her grappling.
Yeah, we need to make sure we're together, basically. Good job.
Pretty, isn't it?
Better make the water in Let's start the bounce out. Just go up that one. All right, that's it. Okay. Yeah, that was some Ricky stuff, huh? Section for everything. Catching fish, cross by line.
That was me. I never did that, Gina. That was you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It looks great.
Sitting up, that was all you. I never did that.
Now throw your left hook after that. Yep. Hold on, right there. You're the one. Left hand.
Nice.
Two more minutes. Right, now you're just flip. Pivot. You're right here. Go It's time.
She is forcing larger, stronger opponents to carry her body weight for round after agonizing round, simulating the exact exhausting pressure she intends to drown Carano in. The muscle memory of her Olympic days has not faded. It has simply matured, becoming more patient, more incredibly precise, and vastly more dangerous. Yet, the heaviest battles fought in this Southern California facility are not happening on the wrestling mats or the heavy bags. They are occurring deep within the complex, heavily guarded psychological terrain of Rousey's mind. To step back into the cage is to willingly confront the most agonizing trauma of her professional life. The knockout loss to Holm was a global spectacle that fundamentally shattered her identity. The barrage from Nunez forced her into exile. The internet was merciless, mocking the very woman who built the empire they were watching. Returning to that exact, highly scrutinized environment requires an emotional fortitude that borders on the superhuman. Her inner circle has constructed a camp that actively confronts this mental friction. There is no coddling. There are no yes men. Her sports psychologists and head trainers have forced her to watch the tape of her defeats, dissecting the failures with cold, clinical precision. She had to sit in the dark and watch her aura break over and over until the footage no longer elicited panic, but pure, calculated, analytical focus. They simulated the blinding lights, the deafening crowd noise, and the suffocating pressure of a massive arena right inside the gym.
The cool thing was just the theme of this camp has just been all about healing, you know, like mentally and physically, and we just hit it hard. Super long marathon session in the beginning of the day and spend the whole rest of the day on healing, you know, and it's really cool because at the end of a training you're like, oh, I have another one later. You're like, let's go do some recovery. And This is the only part that really sucks. The rest of it's pretty cool. But then you feel good about yourself afterward.
By routinely exposing her to the exact triggers that once caused her immense anxiety, they have forged an emotional armor that is impenetrable. She has accepted her past failures not as a permanent definition of her legacy, but as the necessary, painful lessons required to evolve. The fear of getting hit, the fear of public humiliation, has been entirely replaced by a cold, calculating determination to rewrite her final chapter on her own terms. This profound mental resilience is heavily fueled by the deep, undeniable friction that exists between these two pioneers. Make no mistake, this Netflix mega fight is not a friendly exhibition between two retired legends looking for a nostalgic paycheck. It is a deeply personal clash over the true, undisputed throne of women's combat sports. Gina Carano was the very first face of the sport, the woman who proved female fighters could draw a massive television rating and headline an arena. But Ronda Rousey is the woman who broke down the heavily guarded doors of the UFC, forced Dana White to change his mind about women in the octagon, and generated billions of dollars in corporate valuation. There is an unspoken, heavy resentment regarding who truly deserves the ultimate historical credit. Carano's camp firmly believes Rousey took the foundation Gina built and reaped all the massive mainstream rewards. Rousey's inner circle believes Carano abandoned the sport just as the competition was getting incredibly difficult, retreating to Hollywood and leaving Ronda to do the heavy lifting of dragging the sport into the global mainstream. This camp is fueled by Rousey's burning desire to prove that her Olympic pedigree and dominant championship reign completely supersede Carano's pioneer status. She is training with the sheer fury of a reigning queen, defending her legacy against a predecessor she believes lacks the true, gritty fabric of a modern world champion. Furthermore, this return is an act of sheer corporate rebellion. The traditional promoters heavily restricted their pay, chewed them up, and discarded them the exact microsecond they lost their invincible auras. Jake Paul, Most Valuable Promotions, and the massive tech-driven checkbook of Netflix completely outmaneuvered the old guard. They utilized their massive streaming architecture to offer these two discarded legends unconditional, 8-figure flat fees. Rousey is entirely weaponizing her corporate resentment, turning a massive multi-billion-dollar establishment betrayal into raw, explosive judo throws. This isn't just about a massive Netflix payday. It is about establishing, once and for all, the undisputed hierarchy of women's mixed martial arts, while securing the generational wealth she was denied during her historic title run.
This is not just the biggest women's fight of all time. This is the biggest MMA fight of all time. It's going to get the most views on the biggest platform, on a card with the biggest stars, and it was all assembled by and will be headlined by two women who dare to dream big. And this dream is going to bring more opportunities and greater revenue share to fighters than they've ever had before, because this fight is bigger than just me and Gina, and it's bigger than anybody on this stage. It represents an unstoppable force of change in this industry, spearheaded by the fighters themselves. Bet your asses is the biggest MMA fight of all time, Barton Ryan.
As the final grueling days of this historic training camp slowly tick down, the atmosphere inside Rousey's facility is suffocatingly intense. The Hollywood distractions are gone. The WWE theatrics have been burned away. The external noise of the media questioning her chin, her age, and her heart has been completely shut out. What remains is a 39-year-old mother, a decorated Olympic medalist, and a former undisputed bantamweight champion who has meticulously rebuilt her body and her mind for one final, definitive war. She has purged the bad habits, revolutionized her striking defense, sharpened her world-class grappling to a razor's edge, and conquered the dark ghosts of her past. Gina Carano is expecting to fight the hesitant, broken version of Ronda Rousey that stumbled out of the octagon in 2016. Carano's entire strategy relies on Rousey panicking at the first sign of adversity. But what Carano is going to encounter inside that massive hexagon is a completely different, highly evolved predator. The world is about to witness the culmination of a decade of silent plotting, grueling reinvention, and relentless psychological healing. The stage is set. The Netflix cameras are rolling. On May 16th, the Rowdy One returns to claim exactly what she believes is hers, and she will not be denied.
And I had a friend of mine tell me, I think a mutual friend now, that he asked me, what's the best way to train for a marathon? He said, that's to sign up for a marathon.
Amen.
Yeah, and so I think we both needed this. We needed this goal, and I think it's the exact perfect time that it needed to happen. I'm glad it didn't work out before, because before it would have just been something to us, but now this means something to the entire industry.
Behind the scenes here, Jackson Media House, behind the brand, watching Gina Carano train to smash Ronda Rousey in the first round. Yeah, a little slip two down the middle. It's gonna be insane.
It's chain fighting. It's chain reaction. There's a lot of chain movement.
To successfully engineer a comeback of this massive, multi-million-dollar magnitude, you absolutely cannot simply dust off the old, archaic playbooks from the 2009 Strikeforce era. The mixed martial arts ecosystem has violently, mathematically evolved over the last 2 decades. The pacing is incredibly faster, the striking is vastly more sophisticated, the footwork is entirely optimized, and the grappling transitions are completely seamless. For Gina Carano, the first 3 weeks of this secretive, highly guarded Las Vegas training camp were absolutely not about specific tactical adjustments, complex game plans, or highly publicized media obligations. They were an absolute, unadulterated biomechanical war against her own aging body. At 44 years old, the human central nervous system microscopically, undeniably slows down. The incredibly explosive, fast-twitch muscle fibers required to successfully launch her signature, devastating Muay Thai combinations have mathematically, biologically decayed. The incredibly dense, microscopic bone calcification required to successfully absorb the sheer kinetic force of a professional mixed martial arts contest has entirely softened during her long, comfortable tenure in the film industry. Her head strength and conditioning coaches have instituted a terrifying, high-velocity regimen specifically designed to aggressively shock her cardiovascular system back into absolute prime operational capacity. From 8 in the morning until 6 at night, Carano is subjected to grueling, high-altitude sprint protocols, dense medicine ball impact conditioning, heavy resistance sled pushes, and incredibly agonizing, high-volume sparring sessions. The objective is incredibly simple and deeply brutal. Push the pioneer to the absolute brink of total physical collapse every single day. They are completely draining the lactic acid from her muscles and forcing her heart rate into the absolute red zone, ensuring that the massive adrenaline dump of fighting in front of 260 million global Netflix subscribers does not entirely paralyze her central nervous system. They are actively, violently digging through 17 years of accumulated rust to unearth the absolute killer that resides underneath. And it is entirely, undeniably working. As the camp violently bleeds into its final weeks, the absolute snap is slowly, undeniably returning to her legendary right cross. The heavy, thudding impact of her lead leg roundhouse kick is once again echoing through the sterile gym walls, violently shaking the heavy leather bags. But to guarantee her survival, Carano has aggressively sought out the absolute elite grapplers of the modern era to completely rebuild her defensive architecture. The highly publicized footage of Carano training with former UFC bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili sent absolute shockwaves through the combat sports community. Merab is renowned for his absolutely terrifying, mathematically impossible cardiovascular gas tank and his relentless, suffocating chain wrestling pressure. By actively placing herself on the mats with one of the most highly optimized male grapplers on the planet, Carano is forcing her hips and her central nervous system to rapidly adapt to a level of velocity intensity and pressure that Ronda Rousey cannot possibly match. However, raw physical conditioning, an optimized cardiovascular gas tank, and heavily renewed striking power are absolutely meaningless if the tactical architecture is fundamentally flawed. Gina Carano was historically an elite, world-class Muay Thai striker who heavily relied on aggressive forward pressure, overwhelming volume, and a complete willingness to engage in the pocket. But on May 16th, she is violently colliding with an Olympic bronze medalist who possesses the absolute most terrifying, mathematically unstoppable clinch-to-armbar transition in the entire history of the bantamweight division. If Carano recklessly marches forward into the pocket, like it is 2008, entirely exposing her hips and torso, she will be violently thrown through the air and have her elbow joint hyperextended in a matter of incredibly agonizing seconds. The entire tactical foundation of Carano's camp has been completely, meticulously re-engineered around absolute distance management, lateral movement, and anti-grappling footwork. She is endlessly, agonizingly drilling the exact, microscopic biomechanical defenses required to survive the initial clinch entry. She is actively learning to weaponize her vastly superior striking reach, heavily utilizing stiff, blinding jabs and devastating inside calf kicks to entirely destroy Rousey's forward momentum before the Olympic judoka can ever successfully secure a grip on her fabric. It is a highly cerebral, entirely mathematical game of physical chess. Carano's coaching staff knows with absolute, undeniable certainty that Rousey's greatest historical vulnerability is her striking defense when forced to constantly backpedal and absorb straight punches. If Carano can successfully, flawlessly defend the initial terrifying judo entries in the first 3 minutes, completely denying the takedown and aggressively framing off, the psychological tide of the massive mega fight will violently, irreversibly shift in the Pioneers' favor. But the absolute most grueling, heavily contested battleground of this entire historic training camp is not happening on the wrestling mats. It is happening entirely inside the deeply complex, highly guarded psychological architecture of Gina Carano's mind. Returning to absolute combat after 17 years of highly protected Hollywood comfort requires a massive, deeply terrifying emotional recalibration. She has to actively, willingly embrace the absolute chaos of violence once again. She has to make peace with the horrifying, deeply suppressed memory of the Chris Cyborg loss, the exact moment her invincible aura was permanently, violently shattered in front of millions of viewers on primetime television.
Forward side. Now Cyborg on top of Carano. Carano pulls her into half guard. Cyborg trying to split it and mount.
Carano doing a good job of using her foot there for leverage, wanting to push away.
She's got to get her head further out of that cage now. She's caught a little arm up there.
Americana.
And no, getting pounded. She better watch out. Cyborg, it's over.
Oh, wait a minute, the bell.
That was at the bell.
Was that?
It looks like it's over.
He stopped it at the bell.
You do not just take nearly 2 decades off, completely detach from the sport, transition into acting, and suddenly walk back in against a highly motivated Ronda Rousey without severe psychological friction. The cage-side anxiety, the blinding, cinematic lights, the sheer suffocating pressure of a global Netflix broadcast reaching over 200 million subscribers, it mathematically paralyzes younger, highly active fighters. If Gina's mind breaks during that incredibly long, highly pressurized walkout to the hexagon, if she suddenly remembers exactly how much getting violently punched in the bare face actually hurts, she is going to be absolutely slaughtered on live global television. To actively combat this terrifying mental fragility, Carano's camp has deliberately, maliciously manufactured absolute psychological adversity inside the gym. The sparring sessions are completely unsimulated wars. Her coaches are actively yelling, violently pushing the Pioneer past her physical comfort zones, entirely attempting to break her spirit completely behind closed doors so that it mathematically cannot be broken inside the massive Intuit dome. They are aggressively forcing her to remember the absolute savage, highly dangerous gladiator she was before the movies, before the red carpets, and before the massive mainstream fame entirely softened her absolute edges. During her recent, highly publicized sit-down interview at the Jackson Media House, the global audience finally caught a glimpse of the absolute mental transformation actively taking place. Carano did not speak with the highly manicured, carefully guarded tone of a Hollywood actress. She spoke with the cold, incredibly calculating, and deeply aggressive tone of a veteran prizefighter who has entirely re-embraced the violence. When she publicly responded to the incredibly toxic, highly controversial comments made by Sean Strickland regarding her age and relevance, she did not flinch. She actively promised that she and Ronda were going to walk into the Netflix hexagon and violently beat the shit out of each other.
You know, I've got Ronda Rousey professing to the world that, like, I inspired her to do this. And I mean, come on, that is very special. That is a very special statement. So, I mean, as much as we're going to beat the shit out of each other, we're also, I mean, we wouldn't respect each other if we didn't bring our best.
Event in the history of sports. How do you feel about still hearing comments like the one shot Strickland's recently made about you guys' event? Sean Strickland, the UFC fighter.
Which one? What's his name?
Strickland?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, like, don't you guys want, like, women in your country who are like, all right, the man's man, and I think we should build up men to be men. But don't you want some Viking-ass women in your country to be like, I'm gonna defend the house, I'm gonna defend my kids, I'm gonna defend myself at the gas station if I need to. Like, you want your nieces and your daughters. Sean Strickland would too. You know, like, you want to be able to be a woman and be able to defend yourself. And I think what we represent up here is doing that. And so I think he's got a little bit twisted. I don't really pay attention to him or his, like, words. I think they're sadly coming from a hurt place, and hurt people hurt people. And I think that he's being exploited a bit, and that pain is on full display. And you know, all you can really do is just pray for healing it.
Gina.
And the psychological transformation is absolutely, undeniably manifesting. The heavily guarded, deeply anxious celebrity who walked into the gym on day one has been completely, permanently eradicated. In her place stands an incredibly hardened, intensely focused, and deeply dangerous 44-year-old veteran who has actively transmuted her massive historical trauma into pure, unadulterated, highly weaponized competitive spite. This deep, completely undeniable spite is entirely fueled by the incredibly dark, highly exploitative financial history of the mixed martial arts industry. Gina Carano is actively utilizing this brutal camp to prepare for the ultimate, highly visible corporate revenge.
Earlier on, you weren't necessarily game planning for your fights.
No.
You were just training, and then you'd go and take a fight, and you're out there fighting instinctively.
That's what we did. I mean, from the moment I started, we go to smokers. And it was just like, you show up, you fight whoever's in that gym. I remember showing up one time to a smoker, and there was this, like, dude that, like, very intimidating, you know, weighing in at probably like 165, and I was like down at like 145 at that time, or around 115. At smokers, you just fight like the person that's there, and then the dude turned around, it was a girl, and I was like, oh shit,
wow,
that's like the only person in my weight class. And it just ended up being kind of like a funny thing where, you know, she did a long Ramoy, 15 minutes, and like I hit her twice and kicked her twice, and she got out of the ring. Remember, she got out of the ring and walked out of the smoker, and me and like Master Chan and Kevin, we were just like sitting there like, just happened. Goes to show you never like judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
But like, no, nobody's ever game planned me. We're game planning now, and you know, my favorite line that John says is, "Don't do stupid." He's like, yes, no, don't do stupid. And I'm like, okay, don't do stupid, you know? So, I mean, it's really cool to actually have a game plan for this fight, for this specific opponent.
Gina Carano built the entire cultural infrastructure. She was the one who violently hacked through the jungle so that women could eventually headline pay-per-views. Yet, while she carried the immense financial weight of a massive corporate empire, the traditional promoters heavily restricted her pay, violently chewed her up, and completely discarded her when the next generation arrived. This massive Netflix broadcast is absolutely not just a highly anticipated sporting event. event. It is the ultimate, highly calculated, heavily funded corporate hijacking. Jake Paul, Most Valuable Promotions, and the massive tech-driven checkbook of Netflix completely outmaneuvered Dana White and TKO Group Holdings. They utilized their massive streaming architecture to offer this discarded legend a massive, unconditional, 8-figure flat fee. They are completely bypassing the highly restrictive, entirely monopolistic pay-per-view business model to deliver ultimate financial reparations. Gina Carano is training with the absolute, terrifying fury of a woman who actively realizes she possesses the unprecedented, highly visible opportunity to finally secure the massive, undeniable generational wealth she was completely denied by the establishment a decade ago. She is entirely weaponizing her corporate resentment, turning massive multi-billion-dollar betrayal into raw, explosive, striking power. As the absolute final days of this historic, biologically unprecedented training camp aggressively tick down, the atmospheric pressure entirely surrounding the global combat sports ecosystem is incredibly dense. Gina Carano has successfully, mathematically pushed her aging body through absolute physical hell. She has completely rebuilt her biomechanics, entirely re-engineered her strategic architecture to completely neutralize the judo threat, and violently conquered her own deepest, most terrifying psychological demons. She is entirely, uncompromisingly ready for absolute war. Ronda Rousey is stepping into that massive, globally televised hexagon entirely expecting to utilize her Olympic pedigree to effortlessly steamroll a rusty, aging Hollywood actress and secure her ultimate redemption. But what she is actually going to violently collide with is an incredibly prepared, deeply motivated, and highly technical pioneer who has spent the last entirely agonizing 12 weeks aggressively preparing a devastating, highly concussive response. The biological clocks have completely run out. The restrictive corporate politics of the old era are entirely dead and buried. The absolute largest streaming platform in human history has officially locked the cage door. On May 16th, the absolute greatest pioneer in the history of female combat returns to the fire, and she is bringing absolute hell with her.
John, can you kind of walk us through what the training camp has looked like for this fight? I mean, this is a big fight, and obviously a little bit of rust and coming back into the gym and looking amazing. And like I said, we saw all the videos. Like, what does this camp look like? How is it different?
The awesome part about this is we had plenty of time. So this wasn't like a rushed deal. So we've been kind of really taking the steps to make sure that, one, we're getting back in, getting to the fight happy and as healthy as we can is number one. There's no sense in busting our asses if we, hurt ourselves and don't get to the fight. So doing it the right way and kind of taking a little bit more of a, strategic approach on how we prepare for this, but definitely, there's layers to this because we've had 4 months that we've talking about this or more, where we started kind of, okay, we're going to do this portion, this phase, get the body back acclimated. And as we're going, we're just adding more and more and kind of taking some things out. We brought in a lot of great people, Chris Brennan, Tyler Brennan, Lucas Brennan.
Oh man, the Brennans,
the Brennans,
those guys are people to watch out for.
High level black belts and fighters that are now running our jiu-jitsu program at Syndicate. And
you look across the gym and you'll see one of the Brennans just like murdering someone.
They're
with
animals.
They are amazing.
Yeah. So we've got a great group of people. We've got fortunately a lot of great judo, black belts and judo people, even Marab, it's a judo background.
Yeah.
Brought him
I got to stand across from Marab the other day.
I mean, that's a pretty good training partner.
It was, I just like standing across from him. I don't get really starstruck.
We're acclimated and we're ready to go.
Maybe we should do Vegas like this.
He's the predator for a reason, and it doesn't take much. He's very smart. He understands his body very well. So technique-wise, it makes my life a lot easier. He understands technique and stuff. So when I can really put something on him, I can put it on him hard, and it's not going to affect anything. And he's really just a real true competitor. And so when I'm like, well, I need this many rounds in 30, 45 minutes, and he just goes and he just always tries to outdo what I say.
As long as the program for this camp, one of the biggest one was like to have a strong base, a strong stand, work on my quad to have a good stand. Also like work in order to like have a good footwork, which include like all the low body workout, the movement and everything, the cardio conditioning.
Allez, bien. Voilà, on sort de l'axe. Oui, oui. Allez, allez. Allez, allez, 5 secondes. 5. Allez, 2, 1, relâche. On déplace, c'est ça, on sort de l'axe.
To truly comprehend the sheer complexity of this current training camp, you have to realize that transitioning back from elite-level professional boxing to championship-level mixed martial arts is not simply like riding a bicycle. It is a grueling, systemic overhaul of a fighter's entire kinetic chain. For the last 24 months, Ngannou's central nervous system was heavily conditioned to stand tall, plant his feet firmly into the canvas, and throw looping power shots while relying on the massive 10-ounce gloves for a high guard. In the unyielding environment of a steel cage, that exact stance is a definitive death sentence. Standing tall and heavy on the lead leg leaves the calf completely exposed to devastating bone-bruising kicks. Furthermore, a high, narrow boxing stance opens the hips to immediate, debilitating double-leg takedowns. At Extreme Couture in Las Vegas, head coach Eric Nixick and striking guru Dewey Cooper have initiated a ruthless, unapologetic teardown of Ngannou's boxing posture. The first month of this grueling camp was not about building concussive power. It was a frustrating, meticulous process of widening his base and lowering his center of gravity. His coaches are relentlessly forcing him to widen his stance, keeping his hips heavy and his hands disciplined. The heavy, thudding sounds echoing through the gym aren't just from focus mitts. They are the sounds of Ngannou drilling the sprawl. Thousands of repetitive, exhausting motions, dropping his sprawling weight onto fresh, energetic collegiate wrestlers, ensuring his hips are perfectly calibrated to defend the level change. He is actively unlearning the highly lucrative habits that made him millions solely to survive the grim, multi-dimensional reality of cage fighting.
Fight that we knew that was on the horizon, so there was no excuse not to be in the gym. Which the nice thing is we don't have to build like this base layer of cardio. The cardio and everything else has already been set from all the work he's been putting in with Kyler, with the PI, and then his training. So he's never really skipped a beat, so we're not like having to restart from square one, which is a relief for me as a coach.
This systemic, mechanical overhaul is entirely necessary because of the specific, unique threat standing across the cage from him. Philippe Lins is not a flashy, trash-talking superstar who will carelessly rush into a wild, undisciplined brawl. He is a hardened, battle-tested Brazilian veteran, a former PFL heavyweight tournament champion, and a legitimate Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who thrives in the grueling, suffocating mud of a long, drawn-out fight. Lins possesses a granite chin, incredibly heavy hands, and a distinct lack of fear regarding Ngannou's aura. He is the archetypal trap opponent. If Ngannou enters the cage hunting for a quick, viral 10-second knockout, throwing wide, undisciplined hooks with his chin in the air, Lins has the exact grappling pedigree to duck under the heavy leather, secure a body lock, and drag the heavyweight king into deep, exhausting waters. Ngannou's inner circle is acutely aware of this stylistic nightmare. They are preparing for a grueling, 25-minute war of attrition. The training partners imported into Las Vegas for this camp are not just giant stationary kickboxers. They are stout, heavy-hipped, Division I caliber grapplers specifically instructed to crowd Ngannou's personal space. They are aggressively pushing him against the chain-link fence, hanging their entire body weight on his neck, and forcing him to fight his way out of the dirty clinch. The primary goal is to drain the oxygen from his lungs in a controlled environment, pushing his cardiovascular threshold to the breaking point. In a boxing ring, when fighters clinch, the referee steps in and separates them, offering a brief moment of respite. In the PFL Smart Cage, the clinch is where careers are brutally shortened. Ngannou is spending hours drilling wall walks, fighting for underhooks and utilizing precise framing techniques. He is preparing for a fight that likely won't be won with a single, spectacular uppercut in the center of the canvas, but rather through grueling, methodical cage control, exhausting defensive grappling, and punishing short elbows.
When you're hitting the bag, right? I see you hitting the wheel. I want you to do like this. Boom, 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 boom. And keep for boom, 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 boom. How long you can do that? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The combination, boom, like punch. Boom, 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 boom. The bag is gonna be in trouble.
You can miss. You were doing this, boom, boom, boom. You can miss.
I'm a pro. I never miss. It's straight. 1, 2, straight. 1, yeah. Get closer to the bag. Jab, get closer. Jab, when jab, you go, boom, boom. Punch through the bag. Make it more subtle. Make it not like boom, boom. Make it like boom, 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 boom. You hear this? Boom, 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 boom.
Beyond the structural and mechanical transformation, the most significant battle taking place inside this training camp is entirely psychological. Francis Ngannou has already achieved his ultimate, lifelong goal. He walked away from the grueling sand mines of Cameroon, conquered the UFC heavyweight division, fought the corporate establishment for his freedom, and won the ultimate prize. He has secured his family's future for generations. He has nothing left to prove to the critics, the promoters, or the fans. This raises a terrifying, unspoken question that his coaches must confront every single morning. Where does the hunger come from now? How do you motivate a man who has already reached the absolute pinnacle of the mountain to embrace the grueling, painful, deeply uncomfortable reality of an MMA fight camp? To combat this creeping, insidious complacency, Eric Nixick has deliberately cultivated an atmosphere of intense, uncomfortable accountability inside the walls of Extreme Couture. There is no VIP treatment for the lineal heavyweight champion. When Ngannou walks through those gym doors, the luxury cars and the designer clothes are left in the parking lot. He is treated like any other hungry, desperate contender scraping for a paycheck. The sparring sessions are authentic, unsimulated battles. If Ngannou drops his hands, shows fatigue, or takes a round off, his training partners are explicitly instructed to capitalize and punish the mistake. He is constantly reminded of his roots, grounded by the gritty, unglamorous nature of the Las Vegas wrestling mats. The coaching staff is intentionally pushing his buttons, challenging his ego, and demanding technical perfection. They are deliberately stoking the dying embers of the old Francis, the destitute, hungry fighter who fought as if his literal survival depended on the outcome of the next exchange. They are forcing him to remember the feeling of having nothing to ensure he fights fiercely enough to protect everything he has built.
Today's the first real day of camp. First sparring session, get a good 4-round sweat in and work after that. The main thing is just, getting tired and working through that and not getting hit too cleanly. Rule of thumb, it takes 3 to 4 sparring sessions before you really start feeling it. So we just don't want him to get hit too much and keep a level of defensive integrity and everything will be good. Hey! We want to see how Francis was going to react to being hit. We want to see Francis sparring guys a little taller and bigger than he is. Rarely has he fought anyone bigger than him. He's normally the big guy with the reach and the strength and all of that. So we don't want to waste any time. We got into it and we're seeing the progressions since.
This deep psychological grounding is paired with a profound, calculated evolution in his striking arsenal. While his legendary, earth-shattering punching power remains his ultimate equalizer, relying solely on his hands is a massive tactical liability against a seasoned, durable veteran like Lynn's. Dewey Cooper is diligently expanding Ngannou's offensive toolkit, focusing heavily on integrating devastating, fight-ending leg kicks and slicing elbows in tight spaces. Ngannou is systematically learning to disguise his power. Instead of blatantly headhunting and loading up the right hand, he is targeting the lead leg, aiming to systematically dismantle Lynn's mobility from the ground up. By brutally chopping down the foundation, he prevents Lynn's from effectively changing levels, generating power, and shooting for desperate takedowns. The padwork sequences have become intricate, multi-layered traps. Ngannou is drilling combinations that start with a deceptive, probing jab to blind the opponent, force them to raise a high guard, and finish with a concussive roundhouse kick to the exposed ribs or the trailing leg. He is learning to utilize his monumental size and physical presence not just for explosive, chaotic bursts, but to surgically dictate the geography of the cage. Every step, every feint, and every subtle angle change is calculated to herd Lynn's toward the fence, cutting off his lateral escape routes and trapping him directly in the crosshairs of the heaviest hands in combat sports history.
He comes from a tough, humble beginnings, and that always builds character in a fighter and makes him a real warrior. We couldn't take it like a regular 8-week camp and start training. And since Francis just came off a knee surgery and hadn't fought for, almost a year or something like that, we needed to get to work right away.
Hey, first day of pre-camp.
Not bad. Francis is also a rare type of athlete because of that good old-fashioned power. But it's not just power, guys. Timing and power can overcome all those other attributes.
Just for a couple rounds. Just give me a little break.
Jabs working.
This poor man's getting fucking beat up every day. I'll just run through the jab series.
He's trying to hit me hard. My body feel okay though, okay. What we're doing right now is just technical stuff. We're looking for better balance, better technical application is what we're doing. The pre-camp before the real camp starts, we want to get those techniques lined up. So we're doing a lot of application work. We're not bringing spar partners in, nothing like that. We're working hip, everything, recalling, great balance, positioning, that sort of thing. Well, I feel that we're starting to see, an uplift or an incline in the technique. If you compare last Monday, which was our first day, from this Monday, the techniques are definitely sharper, and he's hitting way harder already.
Boom. Tell him, make sure he does what he does. Does that, yeah. Yes, you ain't do that in the bad. I didn't think you know how to do that. Come on. Come on. Ah. Woo, you're doing a good job, brother. Doing a good job. No, let's just try and do the jab liver over first. Oh, make sure that foot is turned. Put that toe in that ground. Put that cigarette butt out. Oh, see the difference? Oh, put it out. Put it out. Dig it in the ground. Bend your legs, man. Come on. Woo. Come on, keep coming through. Move after you punch. Move, pop around, man. Move. Hey, yeah! Come on, do it again. Oh, put your whole body, it's everything. Dead. Put it in him. Oh. Don't pull your hand back too much, just dig it. Yeah, ooh. They can't escape that. Ah! Ooh, I like that. I like that. Come on, you walk around. Gotta walk, brother. Gotta get some walking in, man. This is what fighting's about. Endurance.
Furthermore, the strength and conditioning program has been entirely rewritten to prioritize endurance over explosive mass. In the past, Ngannou stepped into the cage carrying an immense amount of muscle, which acted as a massive drain on his oxygen reserves. For the Philippe Lins bout, his team has focused on leaning out his frame, prioritizing cardiovascular density over sheer lifting power. He is running high-elevation trails in the Nevada desert, pushing his lactic acid threshold to new, agonizing limits. The focus is on ensuring that if the fight enters the championship rounds, the deep, dark waters where Lins thrives, Ngannou will not suffer the catastrophic adrenaline dumps that plagued the early stages of his career. He is building the engine of a middleweight inside the chassis of a super heavyweight. As the final, grueling days of this pivotal training camp wind down, the shift in Ngannou's demeanor is undeniable and palpable. The relaxed, smiling celebrity who attended red carpets in tailored suits has completely vanished into the ether, and the man currently pacing the mats in Las Vegas is a focused, silent, and incredibly imposing force of nature. He has successfully navigated the treacherous, complex transition back to the sport that forged his legacy. He has fortified his wrestling defense, streamlined his cardiovascular endurance, stripped away the dangerous boxing habits, and most importantly, he has rekindled the primal, competitive fire that makes him the most dangerous man breathing on this planet. Philippe Lins is stepping into the cage with the quiet belief that he is facing a distracted, wealthy superstar who has one foot out the door and his mind on his bank account. He is hoping to drag a heavily fatigued, out-of-practice boxer into a grueling grappling match. But what Lins is actually going to encounter inside the PFL Smart Cage is a meticulously prepared, highly evolved martial artist who has spent the last 10 weeks preparing for a grim, unrelenting trench war. Francis Ngannou is not returning to mixed martial arts to take a polite victory lap. He is returning to fiercely, definitively remind the entire combat sports world exactly who holds the crown. The gloves are small again, the grappling threat has been neutralized, the distractions have been silenced, and the apex predator is finally off the leash.
Of course, I mean, as I said, it's a legacy right there. We keep reading it, keep writing it. The first MMA event on Netflix, that might be the continuation and then give more opportunity to other fighters out there. So it's going to be great.
The return of Nathan Diaz.
He is the man who shocked the globe by choking out Conor McGregor on 11 days' notice, the man who headlined Madison Square Garden for the inaugural BMF title, and the man who unapologetically walked away from the largest promotional monopoly on the planet entirely on his own terms. Over the last 2 years, Diaz traded the octagon for the squared circle, securing massive, highly lucrative crossover spectacles against the likes of Jorge Masvidal and Jake Paul. Because of this detour into traditional boxing, many pundits and armchair analysts firmly believed his days competing in 4-ounce gloves were permanently behind him. They assumed the grueling, punishing nature of mixed martial arts, the wrestling scrambles, the devastating calf kicks, the slicing elbows, was a closed chapter for the legendary icon. They assumed he would ride out into the sunset, collecting massive checks for throwing hands in oversized gloves. They were completely, unequivocally wrong. On Saturday, May 16, 2026, the landscape of global sports entertainment will experience a monumental earthquake. Broadcasting live from the state-of-the-art Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, streaming directly to over 325 million Netflix subscribers, Nate Diaz is returning to the cage. Promoted by Most Valuable Promotions, this unprecedented event features a blockbuster card that defies all conventional matchmaking logic. But while the casual masses tune in for the historic return of female pioneers, the hardcore combat purists are fiercely fixated on a completely different war. This is a 5-round welterweight collision against a man who embodies pure, unadulterated chaos, Platinum Mike Perry. Perry has spent the last few years becoming the undisputed face of bare-knuckle boxing, a sport that strips away all pretense and leaves only raw, brutal survival. Welcome inside the heavily guarded, fiercely loyal, and relentlessly demanding training camp of Nate Diaz as he prepares to drag the reigning king of violence into the deepest, darkest waters imaginable.
Far above and beyond your average person who
martial arts.
Slice of how that feels, and now you can translate that into almost every other position. But the most important word.
To truly grasp the tactical brilliance underlying this specific training camp, you must first understand the devastating nature of the Diaz cardiovascular engine. While most fighters rely on explosive, fast-twitch muscle fibers that inevitably drain their oxygen reserves, Nate Diaz is fundamentally built entirely different. He is an elite endurance athlete, a dedicated triathlete who views a fight not as a sprint, but as a grueling marathon of suffering. When the contract was finalized for this massive Netflix event, an incredibly crucial detail was embedded within the fine print, a detail that Perry's team initially overlooked. This is a 5-round, 25-minute professional bout. That specific duration changes the entire complexion of the matchup. Inside his Northern California training facility, the daily preparation is incredibly demanding. The regimen does not revolve around heavy weightlifting or attempting to build unnecessary, oxygen-draining muscle mass. Instead, it is focused entirely on cardiovascular supremacy. Diaz is logging countless miles of running under the blistering California sun, biking across grueling mountain elevations, and swimming endless laps before he ever steps foot on the sparring mats. The strategy is incredibly deliberate. Mike Perry is a terrifying, heavy-handed brawler who historically relies on swarming his opponents early, inflicting massive damage in the first 10 minutes. However, a 25-minute timeline against Nate Diaz is a profoundly terrifying proposition. Diaz weaponizes exhaustion. His coaches are preparing him to weather the initial storm, absorb the early barrage, and systematically drown Perry with relentless, suffocating volume in the championship frames when the oxygen completely leaves the arena. The entire camp is structured around the philosophy that Perry's explosive power has a strict expiration date, and Diaz intends to be standing right there when the clock runs out. However, an infinite gas tank is entirely meaningless if the defensive mechanics are flawed. For the past 2 years, Diaz has been strictly focused on the sweet science of traditional boxing. He has worn massive padded gloves, stood relatively tall in his stance, and completely ignored the threat of lower body attacks. Returning to the realm of mixed martial arts requires a massive structural overhaul of his kinetic chain. Mike Perry is not just going to throw punches at his head, he is going to attempt to chop down the heavy lead leg, force force his way into the dirty clinch and unleash short, devastating elbows. To counter this multifaceted threat, Diaz has returned to his foundational roots under the legendary Cesar Gracie. The grappling mats have become the primary battleground of this camp. The 4-ounce gloves are back on, completely altering the defensive guard. You can no longer hide behind thick leather. You must rely on head movement, parrying, and distance control. Diaz is meticulously sharpening the tools that traditional boxing prohibited. He is endlessly drilling the mechanics of checking heavy leg kicks, sprawling to defend desperate takedowns, and wrapping his long, deceptive limbs around his sparring partners. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt is actively setting traps. If Mike Perry attempts to recklessly close the distance and turn the fight into a chaotic brawl against the chain-link fence, Diaz is fully prepared to intercept him with slicing knees or seamlessly jump into a fight-ending guillotine choke. The ground game is the ultimate equalizer, transforming Perry's forward-marching aggression into a glaring, fatal vulnerability. Perry has shown incredible resilience on his feet, but his submission defense has historically been the weakest link in his armor. Diaz intends to exploit that gap the moment the fight hits the canvas.
Come on, do it. Fight it on the head. Dead hook. Dead hook. Both hands, come on. That. There you go. Jabbed over right. Woo.
All right, yes sir. Go get him, Chad.
Just do that and we can already.
24 hours. Monday to Friday.
Despite the renewed focus on grappling, the striking exchanges remain the most highly anticipated aspect of this Los Angeles showdown. Inside the peeling, historic walls of the Stockton facility, the striking routine remains fiercely unchanged. There are no high-tech sports science monitors, no modern cryotherapy chambers, and no Hollywood entourages holding cameras to film social media content. There is only Richard Perez, the legendary boxing coach, who has guided the Diaz brothers since their inception in the sport. Perez is demanding crisp, elongated combinations, focusing entirely on utilizing Nate's massive reach advantage. The famous Stockton slap is not merely a disrespectful, crowd-pleasing taunt. It is a calculated, strategic framing tool designed to blind the opponent, disrupt their visual rhythm, and instantly measure distance before a crushing straight left hand follows directly behind it. Perez is forcing Diaz to fire the 1-2 combination with rhythmic, metronomic precision. They are actively preparing for Mike Perry's specific, unorthodox rhythm. Perry recently spent years terrorizing the bare-knuckle fighting championship, completely discarding traditional gloves and relying on sheer savagery to destroy legends of the sport. Perry thrives in the muddy, chaotic exchanges inside the pocket. He wants to fight in a phone booth, trading heavy hooks where technique is abandoned in favor of sheer grit. The entire Stockton striking strategy hinges on denying him that chaos. Diaz is drilling how to keep Perry at the end of the jab, frustrating him, piercing his guard, and forcing him to recklessly lunge forward into devastating counterstrikes. Every time Perry rushes in, he must be met with a stiff right jab and a step backward, drawing him deeper into the crosshairs.
How close are you guys to each other right now? Like, could you reach out and swing at each other right now, Connor?
No, he's hiding somewhere. I don't know where this motherfucker's at. Eat your vegetables.
We just train hard. He says, go beat that ass, don't be a bitch, you know?
There you go. Goodness. Nice job. Back to you, Connor.
He mentioned that he needed...
Eat your motherfucking vegetables.
My mom and my cousin say, what's up? My pop. Peace up. The Rock too, man. That motherfucker over here playing me. See him over here smiling with Masvidal. Should have had Mike Tyson handing out a belt if anybody. I didn't give a about no belt anyway, but he could get it too.
The Ultimate Fighter house sucked, man. I f***ing don't recommend it, to be honest with you.
Let's go. Not the house. It's Nick Diaz Army, motherfuckers.
Nate, as far as the fight itself with Leon, I mean, stylistically, is it one that excites you? Is it one that gets you pumped up for the challenge, or is this just a business assignment? I know you wanted the best.
To fully comprehend the dynamic of this fight, we must also examine the man standing across the cage. Mike Perry is not a traditional martial artist. He is a force of nature. His recent run outside of traditional MMA has turned him into a cult icon. By removing the gloves entirely, Perry found his true calling. His skull seems impervious to damage, and his willingness to walk through fire breaks the will of his opponents. Diaz's camp is not underestimating this threat. They understand that Perry will not be intimidated by the Stockton aura. Perry is one of the few men on the planet crazy enough to stand in the center of the cage and point down at the canvas, inviting Diaz to a shootout. This forces the Diaz camp to prepare for an opponent who cannot be broken psychologically. Perry will smile when he gets cut. He will laugh when he gets hit. The strategy cannot be built around breaking his spirit. It must be built around breaking his body. Diaz's sparring partners have been explicitly instructed to march forward endlessly, refusing to take a backward step, simulating the relentless pressure Perry will bring. They are wearing Diaz down, forcing him to fight off his back foot, an area where he has historically struggled against pressure fighters. The drills are designed to create muscle memory. When pressured, pivot, circle out, and fire the straight left. Never retreat in a straight line.
It's dope. I'm gonna check it out. Good to see you, man. Good to see you too.
Hey, how good? One more, it's my cousin. What up, man? Good, how are you?
You got bandana? Oh, that's fucking sick.
How long did you come for? Yesterday. Oh, you just got in? Oh, yeah. Oh, anytime. Hey,
that's fucking dope. I want this.
I was a fiend before I became a teen.
Bro. That wasn't me. It was him. No, that was punch Shane, bro. Can you punch Shane? No, can you kill him? No, he wants to get hit with one.
Here, Dog Sport. Checking out the spot. It's all black. Had black whips. All black every day. Here with Dog Sport. Shout out to Dog Sport.
Beyond the structural mechanics and the cardiovascular endurance, the most significant element of this fight camp is the completely unshakable, fiercely loyal culture of the inner circle. The Diaz Army operates more like a military garrison than a traditional sports gym. The presence of his older brother, Nick Diaz, provides an invaluable layer of psychological fortification. Nick is on the mats, pushing the pace, instilling the relentless, aggressive mindset that has defined their family name for 2 decades. The sparring sessions here are authentic, unsimulated battles. No cameras are allowed when the heavy rounds begin. There is no coddling in this environment. If Nate drops his hands or shows a momentary lapse in concentration, he is swiftly and ruthlessly punished by the elite professionals sharing the cage with him. This gritty, unglamorous isolation ensures that he remains entirely grounded. While the outside world marvels at the glitz and glamour of a monumental Netflix broadcast and a state-of-the-art arena, the man inside the gym remains entirely focused on the grim, gritty reality of the fight itself. The fame, the millions of dollars, and the celebrity status evaporate the moment the gym doors lock. It is just a man, his brother, his coach, and the heavy bags.
We gonna beat your asses, that's what's up. I would've had a lot more knockouts on my record, but as soon as they see and landing on, they start shooting, all of a sudden they're wrestlers, so. I'm an athlete, a warrior. We should always be ready to fight everybody on our worst days. And I want to give a shout out to my brother Nate Diaz, the man, the main man. They're the new king of this motherfucker now, and it's right here, all right?
Who gives a
say it.
Is this the Money Channel? Who the is this?
The reason I was off is because everybody sucked. There was nobody to fight.
Be here tonight as he takes out what? Short, stinging punches from Nate Diaz.
How do you feel about it? Yeah, Conor McGregor, you're taking everything I work for. I'm gonna fight your ass. You know what's the real fight?
This event signifies far more than a simple athletic contest between two fan-favorite veterans. It is a massive, heavily funded corporate rebellion that strikes directly at the heart of the combat sports establishment. For his entire storied career, Nate Diaz openly rebelled against restrictive contracts, monopolistic control, and the highly curated narratives of traditional MMA promoters. He demanded his true worth, fought the corporate executives in the media, and successfully fought out his contract, exiting the promotion with a spectacular submission victory at UFC 279. Now, he stands as the premier, undeniable attraction for most valuable promotions, aligning with Nakisa Badarian and Jake Paul to deliver a direct, devastating strike against the outdated pay-per-view model. Broadcasting live on Netflix at no additional cost to a subscriber base of over 300 million people is a complete paradigm shift. Diaz is fighting for the ultimate validation of his independence. He is proving to the entire fighting world that true, transcendent superstars do not need 3 specific letters printed on their gloves to command the attention of the entire globe. He is the vanguard of a new era, proving that a fighter can govern their own destiny, secure massive generational wealth, and dictate the terms of their own legacy. As the final, grueling days of this California training camp slowly evaporate, the atmosphere surrounding the Diaz army is incredibly intense, yet entirely focused. The endless cardiovascular miles have been logged in the blistering heat. The grappling exchanges have been sharpened to a razor's edge. The boxing combinations are flowing with lethal, rhythmic precision. Mike Perry is aggressively utilizing the media, promising to march forward, promising to unleash unadulterated violence, and promising to leave Los Angeles with a brutal, highlight reel knockout. But Mike Perry has never shared a locked cage with a fighter who genuinely, truly enjoys the suffering. He has never fought a man who will gladly smile with blood pouring down his face, point aggressively at the canvas, and invite his opponent to step deeper into the fire. On May 16th, the massive Intuit Dome will completely erupt. The King of Violence firmly believes he is stepping into a wild, chaotic brawl. But Nate Diaz has meticulously prepared an incredibly deep, inescapable ocean. He has systematically laid the trap, and he is fully prepared to hold his opponent under the surface until the very end. The small gloves are back, the Stockton King has returned, and he is bringing a level of deep, drowning pressure that simply cannot be stopped. There is a jarring, almost primitive frequency that resonates whenever Mike "Platinum" Perry enters a combat environment. It is a vibration born not from the quiet humility of a traditional martial arts dojo, but from an unyielding, almost pathological obsession with the raw mechanics of a street fight. For the last 3 years, the sports world has watched in a state of morbid fascination as Perry transformed himself from a struggling, mid-tier MMA veteran into the undisputed bare-knuckle deity of the modern age. He didn't just win matches, he dismantled the very legacies of the men standing across from him. He left a trail of broken orbital bones, shattered teeth, and permanent psychological scars across the canvas. He became the King of Violence, a man who thrived in a realm where the only protection provided was the thickness of your own jawbone. But as the calendar turns to May 16th, the rules of engagement undergo a sudden, perilous shift. For the first time in over half a decade, Mike Perry is sliding the 4-ounce gloves back on. He is stepping out of the raw, skin-on-bone reality of bare knuckle and walking directly into a 5-round, 25-minute war against the most durable human being to ever grace a combat arena, Nate Diaz. The mainstream media is currently hyper-fixated on the Stockton legend's return, assuming that Diaz's veteran experience and world-class cardiovascular endurance will be enough to drown the Florida man in the deep end of the pool. They are making a monumental mistake. They are failing to witness the surgical, highly sophisticated evolution taking place behind the closed doors of Perry's isolated training camp in the Florida heat. Welcome inside the chaotic, grueling, and intensely focused preparation of Mike Perry as he prepares to prove that his savagery isn't just a gimmick. It is an inescapable, unavoidable destiny.
Nate, how do you feel about Mike Perry as an opponent?
What did he do to you?
Nate, how do you feel about Mike Perry as an opponent?
Yeah, I got a big task on my hands. He's been doing great outside, and he's doing the biggest and the best things out here. He's whooped the most asses, and I got a worthy opponent and a big task at hand. I'm get ready for war.
When I saw you 3 hours ago, you were not wearing that T-shirt. Nick and Nate, right?
Yeah, man, it's them. You know, a lot of young guys grew up watching UFC, seeing this guy, Ultimate Fighter, and now the chance to fight him after everything I've proven, the king of violence, the bare knuckle fighting, the true pain games. Like, I'm here for the blood sport, and Nate gonna be fucking bleeding all over the place. Hopefully more him than me.
How do you feel about that shirt, Nate?
It's a nice shirt.
Where do you feel in what areas that you're better than Mr. Platinum Mike Perry?
I think I'm better than everybody everywhere. Except for I can wrestle a little more, but that's cool.
Do you believe that you possess the power to stop the unstoppable?
Yeah, I believe I'm gonna hit Nate like he's never been hit before. I understand he's very experienced, but I believe the way the momentum is rolling,
To truly grasp the magnitude of this specific camp, you have to understand the mechanical challenge of what his coaches call the reverse transition. Most fighters spend their entire careers trying to move away from the trauma of bare-knuckle combat. Perry is doing the exact opposite. For the last 36 months, his entire striking system has been optimized for the total absence of padding. In bare-knuckle, you don't throw high-volume combinations because the risk of breaking your hand on a forehead is too high. Instead, you throw singular, bone-breaking missiles. You don't use a traditional high guard because there is no leather to hide behind. Returning to the world of mixed martial arts requires a total systemic recalibration of his defensive shell. Inside his private Florida facility, the humidity is thick enough to taste, and the preparation is unrelenting. Perry isn't just hitting bags. He is undergoing a fundamental reprogramming of his striking geometry. His coaches are forcing him to re-adopt the 4-ounce guard, teaching him how to utilize the smaller gloves to parry, block, and counter the long-reaching Stockton-style strikes. The primary focus of the first 6 weeks has been volume and velocity. His team knows they cannot match Nate Diaz in a slow-paced jogging match. Instead, Perry is drilling high-intensity, explosive bursts. He is learning to bridge the gap with blinding speed, utilizing a new, more refined footwork system to bypass the Diaz jab and land his concussive power in the pocket. The sound echoing through the gym isn't just the thud of power. It's the rapid-fire rhythm of a man who has discovered that with gloves on, he can throw twice as many punches without the fear of ending his career with a shattered knuckle. Every session is a hunt. He is drilling the over-the-top right hand specifically designed to catch Diaz as he attempts to pivot away. It is a hunt for the chin of a man who hasn't been truly knocked out in over a decade.
This is who it is, this is what it is. I say yes every single time.
Facts.
They call me and give me the business opportunity. I don't say no to those.
Yeah. I'm the #1 bare knuckle fighter. Regardless, there's a couple guys right there with me. Palomino, he's got like 8 of them belts. And the Juggernaut. That's a great fight. And they're bigger. They're big guys. Big, tough guys. So come at me with the money and we'll talk offers. We'll talk, you know.
He don't call me with bullshit either.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can't talk to broke boys. I can't talk to broke boys.
Hey.
I can't talk to them.
Hey.
You know, so, because we out here on a win streak, and somebody good want to take it from me, and they ain't going to get it. I'm going to bust their ass.
There's levels to it.
Yeah, there's levels, man. That's why my paycheck looks great.
We used to drive to Port St. Lucie or wherever we had to go for his fights, his amateur fights, and you know we would be freaking out in the thing.
They supported me a lot just by being there.
We were all about all the way up.
Yeah, they were.
Then pro, and I went to his debut in the UFC 202 in Vegas.
However, pure power and refined striking are secondary to the tactical puzzle of the 25-minute drowning effect. Nate Diaz is a world-class triathlete who weaponizes exhaustion, forcing his opponents to fight at a pace their hearts simply cannot sustain. Perry has spent the last few years competing in 2-minute bare-knuckle rounds, where explosive energy is the only currency that matters. To bridge this massive cardiovascular gap, Perry's camp has been transformed into a high-altitude, low-oxygen nightmare right in the middle of sea-level Florida. He is subjected to grueling 3-hour sessions that simulate the exact physiological distress of the 4th and 5th rounds. His strength and conditioning team has completely abandoned the traditional meathead lifting protocols of his past. Instead, they are focused on aerobic threshold optimization. Perry is logging endless, soul-crushing miles on the air bike, performing weighted carries until his lungs scream for mercy, and immediately transitioning into live sparring with fresh partners who enter the cage every 2 minutes. The goal is simple: make him comfortable in the chaos of total fatigue. They are preparing him for the moment in round 3 when the adrenaline wears off and Nate Diaz starts pointing at him, laughing, and picking up the volume. Perry isn't just training to win a fight, he is training to survive the most exhausting environment of his life. He is utilizing hyperbaric chambers and specialized blood flow restriction training to ensure that his muscles don't fill with lactic acid when the pace turns frantic. He is ensuring that his power remains lethal even when his gas tank is completely empty.
Knuckle 175 from both Mike Perry and Julian Lane.
Oh,
huge right hand.
Counter.
And you can see right now like almost a taekwondo style counter right hand.
This is going to be one fight of the ages.
Mike, what are you looking for? This is your weight class in the 5 from both Mike Perry and Julian Lane.
Oh,
huge right hand.
Counter.
Julian Lane taking the mandatory 8 count from Christopher Young.
And he's gonna go for blood right now.
Big jab from Lane. Overhand right in lock position. Big rights to the body.
Fight is the aggressive fighter in Julian and the counter puncher in Perry. And which one?
Straight break from Christopher Young. Swing miss coming forward. There's the jab from Lane, right hand. Operation. There's a good entry jab.
I think what's been one of Perry, 100%.
Overhand right.
That's one of my biggest things past, that he has a questionable chin, but he is.
Perry on the right hand, hands go. Right hook, so. Overhand, just kind of hands down, just not seem like he's the overhand right from Perry.
Mike Perry understands that the moment he starts winning the exchanges on the feet, Nate Diaz will attempt to change the geography of the fight. Diaz is a high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who specializes in using a fighter's own aggression against them. If Perry lunges in carelessly, he will find himself caught in a triangle choke or a guillotine before he can even realize his feet have left the ground. To neutralize this, Perry has imported a legion of elite, suffocating grapplers into his camp. These aren't just training partners. They are human obstacles. Their only job is to take Perry down, hold him against the fence, and hunt for his neck with relentless persistence. Perry is drilling anti-clinch architecture. He is learning how to utilize his superior raw strength to frame off the jaw, create space, and reset the fight to the center of the cage. He is spending hours on the mats practicing sub-zero defensive grappling, a system designed not to win a wrestling match, but to make it so frustratingly difficult for Diaz to secure a grip that the Stockton legend is forced back into a stand-up war. Perry's hips have become heavy, his underhooks are surgical, and his ability to stand back up under pressure has reached a level of proficiency we haven't seen since his earliest days in the octagon. He is not looking to submit Nate Diaz. He is looking to make the floor of the cage a place where Diaz cannot stay.
Relationship with Conor McGregor in this juncture of time.
He's just been, I mean, he made a lot of noise in the game, right? What's he been doing since? Only making noise, just fucking running his mouth. He ain't fighting nobody. And, you know, shout out Chael Sonnen. plans to stop the McGregor Holloway 2 fight. I'm gonna beat this guy on Saturday, and then McGregor should have to face me after all the bullshit he's been talking. I want to fight McGregor and knock him out, and then Jake Paul.
And then Jake Paul, get that revenge. He said he would do a mixed martial arts fight.
He did.
And here we are.
So let's go. Me knocking out Conor McGregor and then going to fight Jake Paul in his first MMA fight. I'm going to ragdoll him and throw him on the ground like I did in our boxing match, and then I'll be allowed to do other things to him. And it's all due to the hard work I've been putting in and the performance I'm going to have on Saturday.
Well, speaking of performances, you brought up Sean Strickland, Khamzat Chimaev. That went down in Newark last night.
The psychological warfare of this camp is perhaps the most unhinged aspect of the entire preparation. Mike Perry does not possess a traditional mental coach. He doesn't sit in quiet meditation or practice visualization in a dark room. His mindset is forged in a self-constructed furnace of intense, almost delusional confidence. He views himself not as an underdog, but as a superior biological entity. While the rest of the world sees Nate Diaz as a folk hero, Perry sees him as a skinny, fat relic of a bygone era who has stayed at the party far too long. There is an almost spiritual intensity to his training sessions. Perry often spars without a round clock, fighting until someone, either him or his partner, simply cannot continue. He is cultivating a mindset of permanent war. He knows that Diaz will try to talk to him, slap him, and humiliate him under the blinding Netflix lights. Perry is preparing a response that is entirely devoid of emotion. He isn't training to get angry. He is training to be a clinical, unfeeling executioner. He has created an environment where the only thing that matters is the final objective. He has watched the tape of Diaz's losses to Josh Thompson and Jorge Masvidal until the images are burned into his retinas. He isn't looking for technical flaws. He is looking for the moment their spirits broke. He is entering the Intuit Dome with a singular, dark purpose: to take the Stockton legend and turn him into a cautionary tale for the new generation of violence. Beyond the gym walls, this fight represents the ultimate culmination of the MVP and Netflix corporate disruption. Mike Perry understands the stakes better than anyone. He knows that he is the vanguard for a new era of combat sports, where the traditional promoters no longer hold the keys to the kingdom. He is fighting for a global audience of over 300 million subscribers, a reach that even the biggest UFC stars can only imagine in their wildest dreams. This camp is fueled by the realization that a win over Nate Diaz doesn't just make him a star, it makes him a multi-generational mogul. The financial incentive has sharpened his discipline to a razor's edge. Gone are the days of the chaotic Florida man antics that used to distract him. This is the most professional, well-funded version of Mike Perry we have ever seen. He is treating his body like a billion-dollar asset because he knows that if he executes the plan, the world of combat sports will officially belong to the king of violence. He is fighting to prove that the misfit fighters of the world have officially taken over the castle, and he is the one holding the torch.
You know, you just put it on him.
I think I can do it in any gloves, though. Any sport. I could fight in the UFC. I did boxing. I had one pro boxing match. I'm still 0-1 as a professional boxer. But then I did that Triller thing in the triangle, and, you know, I won. I mean, I just put the pressure on him the whole time.
What are turtleback MMA gloves?
Turtleback are like the training MMA gloves.
Oh, okay.
But it was like while Metallica was playing.
Oh, so they're like kind of big MMA gloves.
He was 27-3 as a professional boxer. He drops me once. They counted it once. He dropped me. Another time I got hit in the back of the head, and the ref saw it, and I went down a little bit, but I got right back up.
So what is the biggest difference about bare knuckle for you?
When I fought Julian Lane, his little fucking head hurt my hands. Because a lot of the time with boxing gloves on, your hands are like open, and you try to close it at the right time. But if you do that bare knuckle, because you know how if you're squeezing your fist, it's a little harder to move. You're kind of tense. But in bare knuckle, you have to learn how to move while you're tense and keep your hands closed. Because with gloves, you gotta be closed up, tight, and squeezing your fist so hard so that when you hit them in the head, you don't destroy your hand.
Yeah, there's 3 levels of vulnerability. And the level number 1 is like, you would see a lot of the glory guys. They keep their hands in a shell, like Alistair Overeem or, you know, like Badr Hari. Those guys would shell up. They shell up, but they have those big ass gloves. And you see that when they...
As the final grueling days of this camp evaporate, the tension inside Perry's facility is thick enough to choke on. The sparring rounds have ended. The cardiovascular miles are in the books. The weight is perfectly on target. The man pacing the floor in Florida is no longer the loud, boisterous brawler we saw on social media. He is a silent, focused, and profoundly dangerous predator. He has successfully navigated the transition back to the gloves, fortified his grappling defense, and built a heart that can sustain 25 minutes of pure, unadulterated suffering. Nate Diaz is stepping into the cage expecting a bare-knuckle fighter who will tire out and fold under the pressure of the Stockton volume. He is expecting a man who will be overwhelmed by the magnitude of the Netflix stage. But what Diaz is actually going to collide with is a meticulously prepared, highly evolved monster who has spent the last 10 weeks preparing for a grim, unrelenting trench war. Mike Perry isn't coming to Los Angeles to put on a show. He is coming to permanently claim the throne. The king of violence is off the leash, the gloves are on, and on May 16th, the world will finally see what happens when the unstoppable force meets the immovable object.